The similarities between art and storytelling are remarkable, but not surprising. Storytelling is indeed an art, and it has a place in human history along with our first traces of art. So we turn to ourselves. This great long thread we call history is nothing but a larger, broader, yet still intricate copy of the personal histories each individual human being lives throughout time. As I dig up the history of art and the valuable remnants of storytelling left behind by our ancestors, I can see the similarities between my journey as an artist and the journeys of art and storytelling through the ages. This connection to history allows me to breathe it and finally understand it, not as a textbook, but as a reason why I am human, as a reason why I am a storyteller, and as a reason why I am an artist. Humans have been expressing themselves through art and storytelling since the beginning of time. The cave drawings and paintings of this era show pictures of animals and even rudimentary stick figures that were probably meant to be people. Some cave drawings even include handprints, lines, dots, and other types of patterning. The ancient people were not only using visual art to express feelings, but they were using visual art to record the life happening around them. Likewise, the beginning of storytelling may have occurred through what are known as chants. Chants were expressed to the rhythm of a daily activity at the time, and were primarily first-person stories. The chants were strong, vivid, passionate outbursts of a personal experience. As humans became more complex and changed their hunter-gatherer lifestyles to settling in villages and communities, the stories and artwork people produced also grew to be more complicated. Storytelling grew from first person to third person, and first-person experiences of daily life grew into epic tales like Gilgamesh, Atrahasis, and Beowulf. Stories began to be exchanged throughout communities and even other cultures. Artwork was used to adorn tombs and to honor high figures in society. Art also began to evolve, since, with each new ruling empire over a region, new layers of culture and tradition were added to the history of art. Small villages and communities continued to grow, becoming cities, towns, and civilizations. Stories continued to be performed and told even though written accounts of some stories had been created. The Iliad and the Odyssey by Homer are both epic tales from this time period that include battles, heroes, and the interference of gods and goddesses. From about 800 BC until around 1450 CE, bards and minstrels were popular and even needed in society, since they held the history and culture of their people. It's important to note that their profession was their only source of income. This is what they did to survive. The royal families that bards and minstrels often worked under gave them all they needed to survive and thrive in exchange for their talents. Throughout the time period that bards were held in high regard, collections of tales such as Aesop's Fables, the Arabian Nights, and the Canterbury Tales were extremely popular. The myths and legends told by storytellers were often painted and sculpted by artists. Gods and goddesses were often portrayed through paintings and sculptures as well. The Dark Ages evolved into the Middle Ages, and religion began to engulf the everyday life of people. Art was often relied upon to tell the stories of the Church. Countless religious figures, including the Madonna and Jesus, were often portrayed in artwork ranging from holy scenes to portraits. The Byzantine style was the main style of art throughout the Middle Ages, and included flattened figures, patterning, and intricate details. However, there was little to no depth in these artworks. The Baroque and Renaissance period, which arrived after Byzantine-style artwork, presents a period of rebirth. Artists began to change the way pictures were painted and perceived. The concept of depth and dimensionality was further explored, and stylistic techniques, art materials, and ideas were exchanged throughout Europe and other regions of the world. The history of storytelling also changed during this time with the invention of the printing press. The rich and popular tradition of storytelling began to fade, and began to be used mainly for entertainment rather than being an important part of a community. After bards and minstrels were no longer as important as before, jack tales replaced them. Jack tales were the common tales for common people, with everyone adding their own flair to each story. However, two brothers, Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm, compiled a grand collection of stories, tales, and legends from the villages and towns they visited. The Grimm brothers and their collection, The Grimm Tales, allowed the oral tradition to be revived among children and parents. Just as storytelling took a turn in its history, so did art. The invention of the camera in the early to mid-1800s changed the art world, as pictures were able to be captured much more quickly and more accurately than paintings. Thus, artists began to experiment with their art in different ways, creating various expressive and informal styles. As storytelling began to be favored more by children through the Grimm Tales and the incorporation of storytelling into kindergarten, which was a program created by Friedrich Froebel, adults have taken back the reins of storytelling. Jimmy Neal Smith organized the first large storytelling festival, and later founded the National Association for the Preservation and Perpetuation of Storytelling, or NAPPS. The name was eventually shortened to the National Storytelling Association, or NSA. Now, storytelling festivals and gatherings are held year-round and in countless places around the world. Like nearly all things in the 21st century, technology has altered storytelling. While nothing can replace the experience of being told a story live, computers, television, the radio, and the internet have had a big impact on storytelling. Likewise, art has definitely evolved since the 20th century and through to the present day. Countless art movements have been created by artists in new outbursts of expression, much like the chants of our ancient ancestors. The question, what is art, is becoming even more difficult to answer, and the development of technology is allowing artists to break boundaries and discover new ways to create artwork. While some people say that storytelling might be slowly fading, and that art is becoming even more confusing, both will always be a part of our community. Stories need to and always will be told. People will always have the need to express themselves artistically. One might even go as far as to say that art and storytelling are ingrained into the human spirit, and nothing will ever take that away.